Hello everyone. In this lecture we will be studying about the frictions. So firstly, let us know what is friction. So friction is the force resisting the relative motion of a solid surfaces, fluid layers and a material elements sliding against each other. So basically friction is a resistance offered to the relative motion of any of the body. So if you observe in this figure, in first figure, a body is tending to move towards right. With respect to that, a frictional force is developed at the surface towards the left direction. Similarly, if you observe the second figure, this tends to move towards roll towards right side and a frictional force is being developed towards left direction. So this is the resistance force which is being developed due to the motion of the body. Hence, the friction is a property by the virtue of which a resistance is developed between the contact surfaces of two bodies when one body moves or tends to move over the another body. So friction can be observed in only rough surfaces. Okay, the frictional force F is 0 when we consider the surfaces as smooth. So this I have been explained in the previous classes. Okay. So next we will move on to what do you mean by limiting friction. So the self-adjusting opposing and resisting friction F, which opposes the sliding motion of one body over another, has a limiting value, and if the applied force exceeds this value, the body begins to move. So for example, this figure, so I say that I am applying a force of 10 kilonewton so that I want this ball to move towards right direction. So when I apply a force of 10 kilonewton, I observe that the body does not move. Now I will increase my force to 15 kilonewton. So even at this time, I observe that there will be no motion in the ball. So now I will be applying 20 kilonewton. So again I observe that there will be no movement of the ball. Now I will just increase the force from 20 to 21. So I observe that the ball starts to roll out. So as the force is being increased to 20 to 21, the ball rolls out. So in this case, the limiting friction is 20 kilonewton. So above 20 kilonewton, whatever the force applied, it tends to roll the ball towards right direction. So here limiting friction is 20 kilonewton. Okay, next topic, let us move on to coefficient of friction. Here coefficient of friction is indicated or defined by the letter or the symbol mu. So coefficient of friction mu is equal to the ratio of the frictional force which is being applied and the normal reaction developed, that is with the contact surface. So here we need to remember one thing, with respect to that particular surface the mu remains constant. So here let us consider this figure. Here we have a block which is of weight W and it is in contact with a particular surface, and a normal reaction N is being developed in vertically upward direction which is acting towards the block. So here there is a force of P which is being applied in direction towards right side. So this force tends to move the block towards right side. So in turn which a frictional force is being developed which will be acting in opposite direction to that of the applied force. That is, the frictional force will be acting towards left side in this case. So if you observe here, there is one more force which is being indicated in letter R. So this is the resultant force due to the frictional force and the normal reaction which is being developed. So this is all about coefficient of friction. Okay, now let us move to the types of friction. So here the friction is mainly classified into static and dynamic friction. Further, dynamic friction is classified into sliding and rolling friction. So here, what do you mean by static friction? So it is a friction experience between the two bodies when both the bodies are at rest. So this is very important for us, as whatever the problems we'll be solving in this module, here we'll be considering the block or any of the body tend to be in equilibrium condition. So that means we assume that all the bodies are at rest only. Okay, next is the dynamic friction. So the dynamic friction is experienced between the two bodies when one body moves over the other body. So the dynamic friction is further classified into sliding friction and rolling friction. So here, sliding friction is the resisting force which opposes the sliding motion of one body over the other body. So the best example for this is when you rub your both the hands with each other. Okay, so here both the hands slides over each other. Rolling friction. So it is a friction developed between the two bodies when the body rolls over the other body. So one of the best example is the tires of the vehicles. Next is, based on the contact surfaces, the friction is further classified into dry friction and fluid friction. So dry friction, if the contact surfaces between the two bodies are dry, then the friction between such bodies is known as dry friction. So the fluid friction is a friction between two fluid layers, or the friction between one solid and one fluid layer is known as fluid friction. So in this we have studied about some introduction related to friction and the types of friction, and also what do you mean by the coefficient of friction. Thank you.